In this video, I'll show you how to make a scatter plot that looks like this using the R statistical programming language. If you want to follow along in this video, I'll be using R version 4.1.2 and the ggplot2 package version 3.3.5. And as with the other R videos, you can find the files for this in the description of this video. So I'm going to start out by loading the ggplot2 package. And then I'm going to read in this CSV data called fake data. And you'll notice that it's got 500 rows and 3 variables. And the first variable is age, second variable is income, the third variable is credit score. And so typically you use a scatter plot to show the relationship between two quantitative variables. And so what we'll do here is we'll use the ggplot2 package and we'll use the ggplot function. That first function, if you haven't seen any of the other ggplot2 related videos about creating various different charts, ggplot2, the GG stands for grammar of graphics, and the way it works is that you layer on several elements to create whatever it is, the figure, the chart that you want to create. And we always start out here using the ggplot function, and in it we specify the data file, so data is equal to fake data. Then we use this AES function within it, which allows us to map on the fields or variables in the file with the different arguments that the function requires. And in this case, we're going to say age is going to be mapped onto the x-axis, the horizontal axis, and then credit score is going to be mapped onto the y-axis or the vertical axis. If you notice, when we run this, what we get is we get this blank chart here where age is in fact mapped onto the x-axis, credit score is mapped onto the y-axis here. The next thing that we'll do, because it's a scatter plot, we are going to add the points to it. And the way we do that is that we use the geom point function, geom_point function from the ggplot2 package also. So then we'll run that, and you'll notice that we're adding it to the previous layer. So when we run that, now it's added the points on top of that. So this is often helpful, just sort of as is, but of course when you're looking at the dots it can be hard to see if there is in fact a relationship. So one thing that people will sometimes do is relate these two variables to one another using a regression line, and where credit score here is regressed on age, and we can add that line onto this figure by using another function called geom_smooth that also comes from the ggplot2 package. And in that function, it takes one of the arguments it takes is this argument called method, and method has a few different values that it can take on, but we will use LM in quotes, which stands for linear model. So if we add that to the rest of this stuff and then run it, you'll notice one that we get this sort of warning here. It says geom smooth using formula y tilde x, which means y predicted by x, and y in our case is credit score and x is age, which is just fine. And so we see the line imposed on top of this. This is the regression line. Let me expand on this a bit. And one of the things that ggplot2 does, or more specifically the geom smooth function does by default, is add the standard errors for this regression line, which gives us a sense of the uncertainty around that regression line. And you may decide that you don't want to do that. You can remove that specification within this geom smooth function by adding a comma and then saying SE for standard error equals false. Now if I run this whole thing, we see that that line, or the standard error in gray, has now gone away and we're left with just the regression line. So we can then interpret this and see that in fact there seems to be a positive relationship between age and credit score. Now this is pretty basic. You can do lots of things using the ggplot2 package. For example, we could change the color of these dots using a different variable. So far in this chart we've used credit score and age for the scatter plot, but there was another field that we have in there called income, and we could make the color of these dots, these points, be dependent on income. And the way we would do that is within the geom point function, we'd add the AES function, which allows you to map variable in the data set with one of the arguments here. And the argument that we're going to use in AES is color equal, and then we'll use the name of that field here, which is just income with a capital I. And so I'll type in income here. And now we'll see that if we run this line in its entirety, we get this, where we see that the color, and we see a scale here. For the legend here, we see that income ranges from some number around 20,000 or less up to around 40,000 or here, and that color blue gets darker the lower it is, and it gets lighter the higher it is. So that is sometimes helpful to see if there's particular clusters of the data by some other attribute that isn't directly taken into account along the X and Y axis. As I've mentioned in some of the other videos, ggplot2 is a very powerful package, and you can do a ton of different things with scatter plots, as well as the other types of plots that I've shown on the YouTube channel. And so I'm just showing you a few of the basic things that I've done with the scatter plot, but the sky's the limit really when you're using the ggplot2 package to create a variety of different charts. I hope this video was helpful. If you want to see more videos on how to use R to create various charts and perform different data analyses, please subscribe.